battered the glass walls of Huayang International Airport, blurring the runway lights beyond them. Precious Williams-Beck stood between two immigration officers with one hand resting protectively over her stomach. Her cream coat was damp at the shoulders, and several strands of her waist-length black braids had slipped loose around her exhausted face. Across the departure hall, her husband watched, without moving. Baek Do-yoon wore the charcoal suit Precious had chosen for his 36th birthday. His expression remained controlled, but his jaw tightened whenever their eyes met. Several steps behind him stood Ma Seol-ah, his former fiancée, wearing a dark blue coat and the careful expression of a woman pretending to witness a tragedy she had tried to prevent. Precious knew better now. She had cried at Woolrim Estate. She had argued inside the immigration vehicle. She had demanded to see the evidence against her and had been told that her residency renewal had been suspended while she was investigated for fraud and theft of corporate information. Now, standing at the airport, she had no tears left. She reached into her coat and removed a small antique brass key. "This opens the compartment beneath the western floor at Woolrim Pavilion," she said. Do-yoon looked at the key. "Another secret?" His voice was low and cold. Anger would have been easier to bear. Precious stepped forward, but the senior immigration officer stopped her. "No," she said. "It opens the truth you were too proud to ask for." Something moved behind Do-yoon's eyes, then disappeared. "You had many opportunities to tell me the truth. And you had many opportunities to question me as your wife, instead of investigating me as your enemy." An announcement echoed through the terminal. Boarding had begun for the flight to Nigeria. Precious searched his face for the man who had once crossed an ocean to ask her mother for permission to marry her. That man did not move. She placed the key on the polished floor between them. "When you discover whose child this is, do not come looking for the woman who begged you to believe her." The officers guided her towards security. Precious did not turn around. The moment she disappeared beyond the checkpoint, Seola stepped forward, picked up the key, and slipped it into her coat pocket. Near the security barrier, John Saibam saw her. 3 days later, Do-yoon would discover that his wife had never betrayed him. She had been trying to save his company, his freedom, and the child he had refused to claim. But by then, Precious would already be fighting for both her life and her unborn baby. 18 months earlier, Baek Do-yoon first encountered Precious while she was standing in front of an excavator. Woolrim Pavilion rested beneath a pale spring sky on the outskirts of Hwayang City. The centuries-old estate had survived fire, occupation, and decades of neglect, but Baekwon Industries planned to transform part of it into a private luxury hotel. Do-yoon arrived to find the construction crew standing idle. "Why has the demolition stopped?" The nervous site manager pointed toward the woman blocking the machine. Precious wore dark work trousers, sturdy boots, and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to her elbows. A set of architectural plans rested against her chest. "You ordered the western wall removed," she said. "I approved its removal 3 weeks ago." "The wall contains original carvings from the pavilion's first restoration." "It is unstable. It is carrying more of the roof than your consultants realized." One of Do-yoon's executives stepped forward. "Ms. Williams, Chairman Baek does not usually debate technical decisions on construction sites." Precious turned to him. "Then perhaps Chairman Baek should begin." The workers became silent. Most people apologized when Do-yoon looked at them the way he now looked at Precious. She calmly unfolded her plans. "The visible damage is only on the outer layer. There is a concealed support frame behind it. Destroy this wall, and the western roof will begin sinking before sunset." Do-yoon studied the drawing. Then he ordered the crew to open the wall carefully. 2 hours later, they exposed the hidden support structure exactly where Precious had marked it. Removing the wall would have caused millions in damage. Do-yoon later found her beneath an old persimmon tree, correcting her plans. "You embarrassed 3 senior executives today." She did not look up. "They embarrassed themselves. I only brought evidence." A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. Precious looked up. It was the first time she saw warmth disturb the severity of his face. After that day, Do-yeon began visiting Wolrim Pavilion more often. He claimed he wanted progress reports, though those reports could easily have been sent to Baekwan Tower. Precious noticed that he always paused beside the old persimmon tree. One evening, she found him touching its bark. "My father planted it," he said, before the company became too important for him to spend time here. The original expansion plans required the tree to be removed. The following week, Precious presented a new design that built the courtyard around it. Do-yeon examined the drawings. "How much will this change cost?" "Less than losing the only place where you still remember your father kindly." No one in his family spoke to him that way. Their attraction developed through quiet, unexpected moments. Do-yeon brought her hot coffee during cold mornings. Precious made him sit on unfinished floors and eat lunch from paper containers with the workers. He learned that she came from Calabar, a coastal city in southern Nigeria, and that her late father had been a history teacher. "He took me to old buildings," she explained. "He said walls remember what people try to forget." "Buildings do not remember," Precious smiled. "Then why do you keep returning to this one?" He had no answer. Months later, Do-yeon traveled with her to Calabar. He arrived at the Williams family home with assistants, a driver, and carefully selected gifts. Evelyn Williams accepted everything politely, then handed him a bowl of vegetables. Do-yeon stared at it. "What am I supposed to do with these?" "Wash them," Evelyn replied. "Precious says you are a very capable man." Samuel Williams laughed from the dining room. Precious leaned against the kitchen doorway, her braids falling over one shoulder. "Chairman Beck, there are no employees here to rescue you." By the end of the evening, his expensive shirt carried a tomato stain. Evelyn had corrected his knife technique several times, and Samuel had questioned whether Do-yeon understood what Precious would sacrifice by moving permanently to Korea. "She will never stand alone," Do-yeon said. Samuel leaned back. "Powerful men make promises easily because they are rarely forced to discover what those promises cost." Precious touched her brother's arm. "That is enough." But Do-yeon kept looking at Samuel. "I will learn the cost." He proposed months later beneath the persimmon tree. Do-yeon had secretly asked Evelyn for a phrase Precious's father used whenever his daughter doubted herself. Taking Precious's hand, he said carefully, "I see your heart." She began crying before he reached for the ring. "Loving me privately will be easy," she warned. "Choosing me when the world is watching will be harder." "Then let them watch." For the first year of their marriage, he kept that promise. Do-yeon defended her when tabloids called her an ambitious foreigner. He attended Nigerian cultural gatherings even when he could not follow every conversation. He learned to greet Evelyn respectfully during video calls and kept Nigerian spices in the Wolrim estate kitchen, though his eyes watered whenever Precious cooked. Then he became acting chairman of Baekwan Industries. The company was facing a serious financial crisis. Several divisions were failing, creditors were becoming impatient, and board members openly questioned whether Do-yeon possessed his late father's instincts. The changes in their marriage appeared quietly. He began sleeping at Baekwan Tower more often than beside his wife. He stopped attending restoration meetings. When Precious called her mother, she often pretended everything was fine. "Yes, Mama, he is eating." Do-yeon had not eaten at home in 3 days. At a corporate dinner, director Gwak Moo-jin criticized the Wolrim restoration budget. Another board member smiled. "Perhaps historic buildings are valued differently in Nigeria." Several men laughed. Before Precious could answer, Do-yeon touched her wrist beneath the table. "Not here," he murmured. She remained silent until they returned home. Inside their bedroom, Precious removed her earrings and placed them carefully on the dressing table. "You protected the company from embarrassment tonight," she said. "Who protected me?" "I prevented an unnecessary confrontation." "Your director insulted my country. And if you had challenged him in front of investors, tomorrow's newspapers would have called you aggressive. So I must become smaller to make their prejudice easier to manage? That is not what I said. It is what you asked me to do." Do-yeon loosened his tie. "Precious, I do not have the strength for this tonight." She watched him enter the bathroom and close the door. The following morning, Precious nearly collapsed at Woolrim Pavilion. At Sirin Women's Medical Center, Dr. Nahyerim studied the scan and smiled. "You are pregnant." Precious stared at the monitor as joy flooded her face. Then the doctor became more serious. "The baby is developing normally, but the placenta is positioned lower than we would like. It may correct itself. Until then, avoid severe stress and heavy physical activity." Precious touched the image on the screen. She planned to tell Do-Yun during their anniversary dinner. That evening, she lit candles and prepared his favorite meal. The ultrasound photograph rested inside a wooden box beside his plate. Do-Yun arrived 40 minutes late. Before he removed his coat, his phone rang. He listened, then reached for the coat again. "What happened?" Precious asked. "One of our creditors intends to file a petition tomorrow. Seola believes she can delay it." Precious's hand tightened around the chair. "Seola?" He seemed surprised she did not already know. "Ma Seola returned this afternoon. Maseong Corporation has proposed a merger." The woman Do-Yun had nearly married had returned on their anniversary. "Do you have to leave now?" "If she can stop the petition, yes." Precious glanced at the wooden box beside his untouched plate. Do-Yun followed her gaze, but his phone rang again. "I will make this up to you." The door closed behind him. Precious sat alone until the candles burned low. The next morning, Seol-ah entered the Baekwan boardroom in a gray suit. Her glossy black hair rested perfectly against her shoulders, and her smile revealed nothing. She greeted Precious warmly. "I have wanted to meet you. Do-Yun does not trust easily. The fact that he married you means you reached a place in him no one else could." It sounded like admiration. Only later would Precious understand that Seol-ah had been identifying the exact place she intended to wound. The proposed merger could rescue Baekwan's weakest division. Seol-ah even defended Precious when Moojin suggested suspending the Woolrim restoration. "It would be foolish to stop a project this close to completion," she said. Precious lowered her guard. Later that evening, she finally told Do-Yun about the pregnancy. She found him in the smaller sitting room, reading a financial report. Precious stood before him with the wooden box he had failed to open on their anniversary. "You left before I could give you this." Do-Yun looked at the box. "What is it?" "Open it." He lifted the lid and found the ultrasound photograph. For several seconds, he did not move. Then he looked up slowly. "Is this ours?" Precious laughed through her tears. The doctor seemed very certain. The report slipped from his lap. Do-Yun crossed the room, knelt before her, and placed one hand gently against her stomach. His composure vanished. "Why did you wait?" "I wanted one evening when your telephone would not be the third person in our marriage." Guilt crossed his face. "I am sorry. I know the company is in trouble. I just need to know that I still matter when the trouble enters this house." "You do." He rested his forehead against her. "I see your heart," he whispered. For one brief moment, Precious believed their marriage could still be repaired. She nearly told him about what she had discovered earlier that day. While reviewing the Woolrim restoration accounts, Precious had found an invoice for imported marble that had never arrived. She searched the site records. No marble had been ordered. 3 more invoices named suppliers none of her managers recognized. Together, the payments exceeded $4 million. Every invoice had passed through Moojin's department. But before Precious could speak, Do-Yun's phone vibrated on the table. Seola's name appeared on the screen. Do-Yun turned the phone face down without answering. The moment had already changed. Later that night, Precious photographed the suspicious records and sent them to Samuel. His reply came within minutes. "Do not confront anyone. One of these companies appeared in a European financial crimes case I investigated. If Maseong learns I am involved, they will destroy the trail and expose my source." Precious read the message twice. Samuel was not only her brother, he had previously investigated the same financial network, and someone inside it was secretly feeding him information. Unknown to Precious, Baekwan's security system recorded every document she opened. Elsewhere in Hwyang City, attorney No Jin-tae placed a legal folder before Do-yoon's mother, Baek Yeon-suk. Mrs. Baek's residency renewal is still pending, he explained. 2 supporting documents can be challenged. If her husband withdraws sponsorship while a fraud complaint is active, immigration may suspend her status immediately. Yeon-suk did not touch the folder. Prepare everything. Do nothing without my instruction. That same evening, Seola received a message from Moojin. Precious Williams Baek accessed the restoration accounts. Seola deleted the message and looked through the glass wall of Do-yoon's office. He stood alone beneath the city lights, unaware that his wife had discovered the first thread of a conspiracy designed to destroy him. Precious was no longer merely the woman Seola believed had taken her place. She had become a threat. And across Hwyang City, the legal machinery that would eventually force her onto a plane had already begun moving. 3 days after Precious discovered the fraudulent invoices, Samuel arrived in Hwyang City. He checked into a private hotel under the name of an international legal consultancy and refused to visit Woolrim Estate. Documents covered the desk in his suite. 2 of the shell companies linked to the restoration invoices had appeared in a European financial crimes case Samuel handled the previous year. The transaction trail had ended inside a private corporate network. Now he believed that network led to Maseong Corporation. There is someone inside Maseong sending information to my former team, he told Precious. If Seol-ah discovers I am in Korea, or learns that you are my sister, she will know exactly where the leak is coming from. Precious studied the payment map. Can the source prove she authorized the transfers? Not yet. The source can access vendor records, not executive instructions. What about Moojin? He approved the invoices, but we do not know whether he is acting for Seol-ah, her father, or someone inside Baekwon. Then we keep digging. Samuel looked at her with concern. You mean you remain inside the building while we search for the person who set it on fire? Do-yoon is about to merge with them. Then tell him enough to stop the merger. If I mention you, Seol-ah may identify the source. If I accuse Moojin without proof, he will destroy the evidence. Samuel's gaze moved to her handbag. What else are you hiding? Precious hesitated, then removed an envelope. Inside was a photograph of her leaving Seorin Women's Medical Center. On the back, someone had written, "The Baek family does not need foreign blood." Samuel's face hardened. You are leaving Korea. No. You are pregnant. And my husband may be walking into a criminal case designed for him. Your husband has lawyers, security officers, and a family office worth more than some governments. He does not know which of them are loyal. Then tell him about the threat. Precious looked toward the window. 2 nights earlier, she had overheard Do-yoon speaking privately with his mother. She is under pressure, he had said. Do not repeat this, but the doctor warned her against stress. By breakfast the next morning, Yeon-suk had already arranged for a family physician to review Precious's schedule and had questioned the household staff about her movements. Do-yoon had shared one private detail. His mother had transformed it into control before noon. If Yeon-suk is involved, Precious said, telling Do-yoon could warn the very person we are investigating. Samuel leaned closer. You are still making the decision for him. I am buying us time. You have always made sacrifice sound more reasonable than fear. Precious stood. Do not speak to me as though I am a child. Then stop carrying danger as though only you will pay for it. Her anger broke. She admitted how frightened she was. Samuel pulled her into his arms. Outside the hotel, a photographer hired by Seol-ah captured the embrace. The photographs reached Do-yoon the following morning. Seol-ah placed 2 of them on his desk. One showed Precious entering Samuel's private suite. The other showed Samuel holding her. Where did you get these? Do-yoon asked. They were sent anonymously. Why bring them to me? Seol-ah lowered her eyes. Because if I destroyed them and you later discovered I had hidden something concerning your wife, you would never trust me again. She gathered the photographs as though reconsidering. They may be innocent. Leave them. Seol-ah hesitated, then placed them back on the desk. That evening, Do-yun found Precious before her dressing mirror, removing pins from her hair. "Where were you yesterday afternoon?" "At Woolrim Pavilion." "All afternoon?" "Yes." The lie was small. He heard it clearly. Precious avoided his gaze because Samuel had warned that revealing his identity could expose the whistleblower. Do-yun saw only concealment. The next morning, he ordered Sebom to verify the hotel records. She returned with a printout. The suite had been booked under the name of a legal consultancy. The guest had used a European passport and requested strict privacy. "Did you identify him?" Do-yun asked. "The hotel will not release personal details." "Keep trying." Sebom studied him. "Have you asked Mrs. Beck?" "I asked where she was." "She lied." "That does not tell you why." Do-yun's expression closed. "Verify the man." Seola soon learned that he was investigating. Attorney No arranged for the hotel's reservation records to be altered. Samuel's nationality remained visible, but his surname disappeared behind the consultancy's corporate account. A private investigator then produced records showing that the same man had visited Hwayang several times during Precious's marriage. The visits were genuine. Samuel had traveled to Korea for legal work, and once for Evelyn's birthday. Only their meaning had been changed. Over the following days, Seola made herself indispensable. She resolved a creditor dispute before breakfast, stood beside Do-yun through hostile board meetings, and reminded him of negotiations they had witnessed as children while their fathers built their companies. She never directly accused Precious. She only asked careful questions. "Does she understand the pressure you are under? Could someone be using her access without her knowledge? Is it possible she has become frightened and does not know how to tell you?" Each question ended with an apology. Do-yun did not kiss Seola. He did not take her to bed. He allowed something quieter and more dangerous. He let her become the person who comforted him whenever his wife's silence frightened him. One evening, Precious entered Do-yun's office and found Seol-ah adjusting his tie before a live interview. Seol-ah stepped back. The knot was uneven. Precious looked at Do-yun. "You have hands." Seol-ah offered a restrained smile. "I should leave." After the door closed, Do-yun exhaled. "Do not turn this into something it is not." Precious held his gaze. "What is it?" "She is helping prevent thousands of people from losing their jobs." "And what am I helping you prevent?" "This is not the time." "It is never the time when the conversation concerns us." Do-yun returned to his papers. Precious remained near the door. "You once crossed an ocean because you wanted to understand my world," she said. "Now you cannot cross a room to ask what is happening inside mine." His hand stopped above the page. For a moment, she thought he would answer. Instead, he said, "I have an interview in 5 minutes." Precious left. The second threat arrived at Woolrim Pavilion the following afternoon. Inside the envelope was a copy of her ultrasound photograph. Beneath it, someone had written, "Leave Korea before the child gives you a permanent claim." Precious's hands began to shake. Samuel told her to contact the police. "We still do not know who is feeding them information," she said, "then use an outside agency. If Yeon-suk is involved, she may hear about it through the family's legal office." "Precious, listen to yourself. If I tell Do-yun now, he will confront his mother. If she is innocent, I damage his family. If she is guilty, we lose the evidence. And if something happens to the baby while you wait?" The question remained with her long after the call ended. For the first time, protecting Do-yun and protecting her child no longer pointed in the same direction. That night, she packed a small suitcase. She intended to leave Woolrim Estate temporarily and stay somewhere Seolah's people could not trace. Before she reached the door, Do-yun entered the bedroom. He looked at the suitcase. "Where are you going?" "To a hotel near Woolrim. The early site inspections are exhausting." "You expect me to believe that?" Precious tightened her grip on the handle. "What do you expect to believe?" He nearly showed her the photographs. Instead, he waited for her to volunteer the truth. She did not. "I will have a driver take you." "No. Precious. I need one night where no one decides what is safest for me." Do-yeon heard rejection. Precious meant survival. She left before either of them found better words. The following morning, an altered medical report arrived in Do-yeon's private email. It referenced an injury he had suffered in his 20s and concluded that his chances of fathering a child were almost non-existent. He read the conclusion until the words blurred. His first response was disbelief. His second was to call the clinic named on the report. An administrator confirmed the file number and claimed the conclusion was authentic. Seola had bribed him 2 days earlier. Do-yeon contacted an independent specialist who requested the original imaging records. Before they could be released, Attorney No sent a legal notice stating that the files had been archived after a systems transfer and would take several days to retrieve. Every path had been prepared to lead Do-yeon toward the same conclusion: the infertility report, the hotel photographs, Precious's lie, her move to a hotel, the confidential company accounts she had accessed. Do-yeon sat alone in darkness while his father's voice returned from childhood. No one enters a powerful family without wanting something. The following morning, he summoned Sebom. I need a complete record of my wife's movements for the past 2 weeks. Sebom did not write down the instruction. Sir? Driver logs, building entries, calls made through company devices, anything connected to the man at the hotel. She is your wife. That is why discretion is necessary. No, Sebom said quietly. That is why you should speak to her. Do-yeon looked up. I spoke to her. She lied. Then ask why. His voice hardened. Do what I asked. Sebom bowed. Yes, sir. She obeyed, but shame followed her from the room. Precious tried once more to reach the man she had married. She brought Do-yeon to Wolrim Pavilion after sunset. The western rooms were almost complete. Warm lights glowed beneath the curved roof, reflecting across the restored floor. Precious opened the door to a private reading room. Do-yeon stopped. The shelves had been rebuilt from childhood photographs. Along one beam were faint marks recording his height at different ages. He touched the lowest line. I thought this room was gone. Damaged is not the same as useless. The words settled between them. The false infertility report was inside Do-yeon's coat. He wanted to show it to her. He wanted her to laugh at his fear and tell him it was absurd. Precious wanted to show him the threat against their baby. For several seconds, both stood at the edge of honesty. Then her phone rang. Samuel's name appeared on the screen. Precious stepped outside. We finally have enough to connect the shell companies to Myeong, Samuel said. But my source says someone inside the Beck legal office is preparing an immigration complaint. Do not tell Do-yeon until we know whether his mother ordered it. How much time do we have? Maybe a day. When Precious returned, Samuel's follow-up message appeared on her screen. Do not tell Do-yeon yet. His mother may be involved. Do-yeon saw only the first sentence before she turned the phone over. His expression changed. What is it? Precious asked. Nothing. The word sounded exactly like her own lie. Seola and Moo-jin moved that night. Moo-jin entered Precious's studio using a master access card. He placed confidential merger documents, offshore account records, and copies of Do-yeon's security credentials inside her restoration case. Attorney No filed a fraud complaint using the planted evidence. At the same time, he challenged 2 supporting documents in Precious's pending residency renewal. Her current status had not expired, but the complaint allowed immigration officials to suspend the renewal and restrict her movements while the case was reviewed. The final step required Do-yeon's signature. An anonymous message arrived on his phone. Search your wife's studio before she leaves Korea. He arrived before Precious. The restoration case lay open on the central table. Inside were the documents Moo-jin had planted. When Precious entered, she stopped in the doorway. Do-yeon held up the offshore records. Were you planning to explain these? She stared at them. Some of those are not mine. But you recognize the accounts? Yes. The answer confirmed his fear. You have been taking information from Baekwon. I have been trying to discover who is stealing from it. By meeting another man in secret? He placed the hotel photographs beside the files. Precious's shock hardened into anger. You had me followed. I tried to identify him. Instead of asking me, I asked where you were. You lied. Because identifying him would place someone else in danger. Who is he? Someone I trust. More than your husband? At this moment, he is the only person helping me understand what is happening inside your company. Do-yeon removed the medical report. Is he also the father of your child? Precious went still. What did you say? He placed the document before her. She read the conclusion. Then she looked up. You believe this? I verified the report. You verified a document. You never verified me. The clinic confirmed it. And I know who I have shared my body with. Then tell me who the man is. I cannot. Not yet. Do-yoon's face closed. Precious stepped closer. I will take a DNA test today. Her immediate answer unsettled him. But when it proves the child is yours, she continued, it will not erase the fact that you looked at your pregnant wife and saw a criminal before you saw the woman you loved. The studio doors opened. Yeon-suk entered with Attorney No. The lawyer carried a prepared file. Immigration authorities have opened a fraud investigation, he said. Mrs. Beck's residency renewal has been suspended because 2 supporting documents are being challenged. Precious looked at Yeon-suk. This was prepared before today. No one answered. Attorney No placed a statement before Do-yoon. If you maintain marital sponsorship while the fraud complaint is active, the company could be accused of helping Mrs. Beck remain under false pretenses. If you temporarily withdraw sponsorship, immigration can process the matter separately from Baekwon Industries. Temporarily? Do-yoon asked. Once she is cleared, it can be restored. Precious stared at her husband. Do not sign it. Yeon-suk spoke gently. This protects the company while the facts are examined. An innocent person can still be destroyed when guilty people control the facts. Do-yoon looked at the photographs, the planted files, and the report he had tried to verify. Then he picked up the pen. Precious watched him sign. Her face became quiet in a way that frightened even him. Outside, vehicle doors slammed. Immigration officers entered Woolrim Pavilion carrying the suspension order. Do-yoon told himself Precious would remain in Korea until the investigation ended. He told himself withdrawing sponsorship was only a legal precaution. Then the senior officer explained that because her renewal had been suspended and the complaint alleged misuse of her current status, she would be placed into expedited removal proceedings unless a court intervened. Precious looked at Do-yoon. For the first time, he understood that the paper he had signed had not merely separated his company from a scandal. It had placed his pregnant wife's future in the hands of the people accusing her. He could still have called his lawyers. He could still have demanded an emergency injunction. Instead, surrounded by evidence designed to confirm his deepest fear, he remained silent. The officers did not handcuff Precious. They did not need to. The silence inside Woolrim Pavilion had already turned her into a criminal. Workers watched as she was escorted through the restored hall. Beyond the gates, journalists waited beneath umbrellas. Someone had informed them before the officers arrived. Precious looked at Do-yoon. You knew they were coming. I knew there was an investigation. And you allowed me to walk into it without warning. If you cooperate, my lawyers can challenge the order. Your lawyers helped prepare it. The officers asked her to surrender her passport and telephone. She handed both over. Then she rested one arm across her stomach. I am pregnant. The senior officer glanced at the medical declaration. Your condition will be considered during processing. Seola entered the pavilion wearing an expression of practiced concern. What is happening? Precious looked at her and finally understood the precision of Seola's position. Close enough to influence every decision, far enough to appear innocent. Then Precious saw Do-yoon's gaze fall toward her stomach. The infertility report still lay on the studio table. Tell them, she said. His face tightened. Tell them what? That I am carrying your child. A murmur moved through the room. Do-yoon felt every eye turn toward him. Humiliation reached him before reason did. Whose child are you carrying? The room became still. Precious stared at him. Her lips parted, but no sound came at first. Then she straightened. "The child belongs to the man I married," she said. "But that man is no longer standing in front of me." The officers led her outside. Camera flashes exploded beyond the gates. Precious did not hide her face. At the immigration office, she learned how thoroughly the trap had been prepared. A hearing had been scheduled, then secretly brought forward. The notice had been delivered to the wrong department inside Baekwan, leaving her unaware until the decision had already been made. Unless a court intervened, she would be removed while the investigation continued. She requested independent counsel. Attorney No appeared as her supposed legal representative. "I never hired you," Precious said. "You do not have time to find anyone else." Then perhaps that was the point. By evening, she was taken to Hwayong International Airport. Do-yun was waiting near the departure hall. Perhaps part of him believed that showing up meant he had not abandoned her completely. Precious felt only exhaustion. She removed the antique brass key from her coat. "This opens the compartment beneath the western floor at Woolrim Pavilion." Do-yun looked at it. "Another secret?" "No. It opens the truth you were too proud to ask for." Boarding was announced. Precious placed the key on the polished floor between them. "When you discover whose child this is, do not come looking for the woman who begged you to believe her." She walked toward security without turning back. Seola retrieved the key. Sebom saw her. On the plane, Precious sat beside the window with one hand pressed beneath her stomach. A dull ache moved across her lower back. She told herself it was stress. Her phone had been returned before boarding. A voice message from Evelyn waited for her. "My beautiful girl, Samuel says you may be coming home. I have already warned your aunties not to crowd you, which means they will all arrive before sunrise. Bring something warm for the baby. I know Calabar is not cold, but mothers are allowed to worry." Precious pressed the phone against her lips. She could not answer. At Woolrim Estate, Do-yun found the ultrasound photograph inside the wooden box on the abandoned anniversary table. The candles had melted into pale pools of wax. On the back, Precious had written, "To the man who taught me that home can exist in another person." Do-yun sat alone beneath the dim dining room light. His phone rang. Dr. Na-hae-rim introduced herself as Precious's obstetrician. "Mrs. Beck missed an urgent appointment today. Has she transferred her care?" "What urgent appointment?" "The low placental placement. Your wife requires close monitoring, particularly after severe emotional stress or long-distance travel." Do-yun stood. "She did not tell me." "She said you were under considerable pressure." "What about the baby?" "The baby was stable at her last examination." "Could it be mine?" The doctor's tone changed. "Mr. Beck, nothing in her medical history gives you any reason to question paternity." Do-yun drove to the hospital immediately. Dr. Hiram examined the fertility report and frowned. "This conclusion is false. It contains my medical history. Fragments of it. Your follow-up testing ruled out infertility." The original consultation page was missing. Someone had accessed Do-yun's file 2 weeks earlier and removed it. The administrator responsible was the same man who had confirmed the false report. For the first time, the evidence pointed away from Precious. The next morning, Sebom returned to the hotel where Samuel had stayed. A junior receptionist remembered Precious addressing the guest by a family nickname. Before Sebom left, the receptionist slipped her a discarded meal receipt. The signature read, "Samuel Williams." At Baekwan Tower, investigators were already questioning the fraudulent restoration payments. Seol-ah blamed Precious. She accessed the accounts. She had Do-yun's credentials. She may have arranged the transfers before leaving Korea. Then the boardroom doors opened. Samuel entered with 2 attorneys. Do-yun recognized the man from the photographs. Samuel placed his passport, birth records, and an old family photograph on the table. It showed him as a teenager beside a much younger Precious and their parents in Calabar. "Before you accuse my sister again," Samuel said, "perhaps you should learn the name of the man you called her lover." Do-yun stared at the photograph. "I am Samuel Williams. Precious is my younger sister." The hotel room, the secret calls, the embrace. Every image changed meaning at once. Samuel placed a transaction map before the investigators. Precious was helping me trace 4 fake construction companies moving Baekwon funds into accounts controlled by Maseong subsidiaries. Mujin's face lost color. Seola's expression remained still. But for the first time, Do-yoon looked at her with doubt she could not redirect. That evening, Sebom entered his office and placed the hotel receipt before him. Then she told him what she had seen at the airport. Seola took the brass key. Security searched Seola's office. The key was found inside a locked drawer beneath confidential merger papers. She claimed she had picked it up for safekeeping. "Why hide it?" Do-yoon asked. "I forgot it was there." He looked at her. "You remember everything." The following morning, Do-yoon and Samuel returned to Woolrim Pavilion. The brass key opened a narrow compartment beneath the western floor. Inside were original invoices, a handwritten map linking the false suppliers, and a small voice recorder. Do-yoon pressed play. Precious's voice filled the room. "I think Madame Bayek may be involved," she told Samuel, "but I cannot accuse his mother without proof." "Why are you still protecting him?" Samuel asked. "Because he spent his whole life believing she protected him. If I am wrong, I destroy his family. If I am right, the truth will destroy him." Do-yoon lowered his head. The recorder continued. Precious described the threats sent to her and named a hospital employee who had repeatedly interfered with her appointments. The nurse was questioned and admitted accepting money from Attorney No. "I was told only to delay the appointments," she said. "I did not know she would be deported." "Who instructed him?" Do-yoon asked. "I never met them. But he said Madame Baek wanted the pregnancy handled before it became a permanent complication." Do-yoon went directly to his mother. He placed the invoices, access logs, and nurse's statement before her. "Did you arrange Precious's residency complaint?" Yeon-suk did not deny it. "I authorized Attorney No to prepare legal options." "Did you tell him to interfere with her medical care?" "No." "Did you know he was paying a nurse?" Her silence lasted too long. Seola said they would only create enough pressure to make Precious leave voluntarily. "You gave my wife and unborn child to desperate people and expected restraint?" "I was protecting you." "From what?" Yeon-suk's control finally slipped. "From disappearing into her life. She took you to Nigeria, and you returned speaking about family as though everything we built was cold and empty. You changed the pavilion for her. You challenged the board for her. Then she became pregnant." Her voice sharpened. "A wife can be divorced. The mother of your child would always have a claim on you." Do-yoon stared at her. "You were willing to destroy my family to preserve your place inside it." "I am your family." "No," he said. "You are the person who taught me to mistake control for love." His phone rang. Samuel answered. It was Evelyn. Precious had collapsed shortly after landing in Calabar. She was bleeding heavily. Doctors had taken her into emergency surgery. The truth arrived exactly 3 days after Do-yoon watched his wife disappear through the airport gate. The false fertility report had been exposed. Samuel's identity had been revealed. The financial conspiracy had begun to collapse. His mother's involvement had finally come to light. None of it mattered as much as the final words Samuel heard through the phone. "The baby's heartbeat is weakening." Do-yoon left for Nigeria that night. By the time he reached the hospital in Calabar, dawn was beginning to brighten the sky. Evelyn stood outside the surgical ward. She looked at him with none of the warmth he remembered from her kitchen. "You promised she would never stand alone," she said. "You sent her back carrying your child and your shame. I need to see her." "You needed to see her before she crossed that gate." Samuel stepped between them. A doctor emerged from the operating room. Precious had suffered severe bleeding and early contractions. The baby's heartbeat was unstable. Do-yoon immediately offered specialists, a private aircraft, and any equipment the hospital required. The doctor looked at him sharply. "Moving her could kill her. Mr. Beck, your money is not the treatment." The doors closed again. Do-yoon sat beneath the harsh corridor lights with the ultrasound photograph between his hands. For the first time, there was no company to command, no lawyer to summon, and no signature that could reverse what he had done. Behind those doors, the woman he had sent away was fighting for her life. And so was the child he had refused to claim. If you believe Precious deserves the truth and justice, like this video and subscribe so you do not miss part 2. Tell us in the comments, should Precious ever forgive Doohyun after what he did? In part 2, the people who framed her will finally be exposed, but the truth may have arrived too late to save her and the baby. To be continued in part 2.